If you're eyeing that shiny new build in the new development, I'm here to tell you that beneath the fresh paint, the promise of a perfect life in your new home, there is a financial trap that's waiting for you. And that trap, it could cost you tens, even hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost equity and stalled appreciation. And the builders, they absolutely do not want you to know this. So over the past 4 years in the GTA real estate market, we've seen crazy shifts. Things have gotten nuts. We've seen benchmark prices soar from 2020 to 2022, only to experience a significant correction right now, followed by a period of stabilization right now or modest losses at best. Homeowners who bought before 2020 or during some of these certain dips, there's been substantial equity growth, but where there is that growth, there's also some greed, of course, because now these people, they do feel like they are owed equity year after year in something that they've bought. And we've seen waves of investors, both local, international, buying up multiple properties. This has slowed down, but they're buying them sight unseen in some cases, tying up entire blocks of homes, entire floors of condo buildings and new developments. And they were seeing this rapid price appreciation, and it was a guaranteed win for them. They were making money if they bought into some of these new developments. This influx was called speculative buying. Now, it created an imbalance in our market, and we're now feeling some of the ramifications of that right now. And the imbalance is one of the reasons why you should think twice. There are several compelling reasons not to buy, and perhaps maybe one reason right now to buy a new build in the GTA. So let's jump into the video. The first reason you might want to hold off on buying a brand new home is the specter of future tariff and material costs. Construction is extremely complex, and the cost of building materials can fluctuate wildly, as you may have noticed over the last 5 years. Tariffs on imported materials, supply chain disruptions, labor costs, these factors all contribute to the final price tag of the new homes. Now, when it comes to these cost increases, rest assure yourself that the builder is not going to absorb that hit. They want to make their money. They're going to pass these increases along to you, the buyer. And in recent market updates, we've covered a lot of this stuff, but we've discussed the cost increases on some of these new homes, and it can be anywhere between 5 and 15% simply due to material and labor inflation. And the costs, they might continue to climb. Now, it might seem to you like, well, that should push up the resale homes, but the reality is, it doesn't push up the resale values at all if the builders charge more, even if it's a block away from the resale. The builders aren't going to be polite and just absorb these costs for you to make you feel better about your investment. Unfortunately, it's going to impact the way the process works for you buying a new build home, and it could potentially take some immediate equity away from your position if there is any equity at all. Now, the second reason that's often overlooked is you probably don't want to get into a new development area, because if you want to sell that property in the near-ish future, you might be actually competing with these builders when it comes to selling your home down the road. And what I mean by that is, if you buy something today that's new development, and you live in it for 4 or 5 years, it's likely that the whole neighborhood that's being developed is not fully completed, and the builder might be still selling some units when you are ready to move out of there in 5 years, potentially, if they continue to build in that area, if it is a larger development. And you might come up against them when it comes to selling, and you might not be able to match the incentives that they're offering for a brand new ready-built home. So that's something to consider. It's a situation that doesn't come up all that often in the GTA, just because there is not as much land available for the builders to really sprawl out and build some of these communities. But it's something you have to consider. And furthermore, the longevity of the development. If you buy in phase 1 of a multi-phase community 5 or even 10 years later, when you're ready to sell, this is when the builder costs and the builder as your competitor selling product and homes is going to really crop up. And the last and arguably the most critical reason to be cautious about new builds in the GTA today is the sheer volume of speculative investment. It's flooded certain segments of our market, the condo market, absolutely. And because of the speculative buying, values, they went up. They went up so much in the last few years because we had low interest rate environment. We had great terms with some of these builders. And if you bought and were an investor, you may have not had the intent to even occupy this unit. Many of them were actually just purchased, rented for a short period of time, and then renters were evicted so the owners can actually sell these units, which is not a great situation. Now, others were people who bought. They never rented it, and they just left the unit vacant, and now they're being listed for sale as well. It's not happening only with new builds, it's happening with just resale condos as well, and it's particularly something that's common in large-scale new developments, more so than anything else. Now, speculative activity, it's been slowed down quite a bit because our condo inventory is not being swallowed up anymore. The speculators realize there's no appreciation that's going to happen in the near future, so they've kind of vacated the market altogether. But when you're buying in a new development project, you really want to avoid being associated with a lot of the speculators, the investors. And if you do need to sell a condo, you're going to be up against a ton of other condos, especially in the first few years of the condo being built and occupied. It ends up being a massive hassle. We currently have a client who's trying to sell their unit a couple of years after they've taken possession, and there's 50 other units for sale, most of which are investor units that have been vacant the whole time and not lived in. So with these warnings, you might be asking yourself, is there any reason to actually buy a new build at all right now? And I believe there's one, maybe just one truly compelling reason for you if you're planning to stay in that home for a very, very long time. If your intention is to live in the home for at least 7 to 10 years, if not longer, then yes, buying a new build home can be a fantastic opportunity for you. You might be asking why? Because over the long haul, of course, inflation and the general market appreciation will usually work out in your favor. I just think it's going to be a little bit longer than a lot of us have planned. Now, you might right now find some really, really motivated sellers and builders who are trying to just sell some inventory, and they might need to offload, especially if it's a seller who bought a vacant property and they were speculating. They might need to just get rid of the property right now because they're bleeding money and they can't close on it potentially, or maybe they just closed and they have a mortgage renewal coming up. This is where you might find a really good deal right now, especially in the oversupplied areas. When you look at the collective data for some of these areas that are dominated by new construction, it's usually on the expanding edges of cities like Brampton, Milton, Whitby, Bradford. You're often going to see specific market behavior. And right now, what that means is you're going to see higher months of inventory in these areas. It's going to take you a lot longer to sell at the currently listed home prices. And you're going to be in a buyer's market here, not necessarily a seller's market. Now, properties in these areas tend to sit on the market for extended periods of time compared to the city average. And this is a clear indicator for people that the oversupply is relative to the demand right now. The biggest factor is continuous stream of new homes is being released by the builders while we're still not able to sell through the other phases. The builders are still continuing on with their projects. And think of these areas as very active construction zones. If you wanted to move into one of them, the roads are new, the schools are still being built, there's a lot of dirt, there's a lot of dust, and the amenities are not quite there yet. This is where the speculative buyers, they lost out. This is where right now you can take advantage of somebody who needs to sell because they don't want to be in this environment or because they bet wrong on the real estate market. And if you're considering still buying a new build home right now, there's some areas that you might want to do that in. Some of the established areas in the inner parts of Toronto or mature areas like a Oakville or Burlington, Markham, Richmond Hill, or even the older pockets of some of the other cities like a Brampton or Mississauga. If it's a outskirts area of Brampton or Mississauga and they're completely designing a whole new area or a community, then you're going to have a lot higher months of inventory, and this is also less desirable right now for a lot of people. So if you want to be in an area that has great value and more certainty on value, go for some more of those inner communities in some of these more established areas. Now, at the end of the day, I'm not a big supporter of new build property right now. It just makes more sense to go for something that's resale, that you can move into sooner, that you can see the finished product. At the end of the day, if you think new build is the right thing for you, make sure you do your due diligence, make a decision that makes financially sound sense, and think about it from a long-term perspective, and you'll be okay no matter where you buy that property.